Welcome to What to Say and How to Say It. I'm Shai Lewis, and I'm here with Nina Rosner. Our mission is to help you, Christian married man or woman, navigate conflict and build connections so you can have a thriving marriage. Today, our topic is what to say when others judge your decisions or you receive unsolicited advice. So we know that judging is something that is a thing in Christendom. God, talks about it in his word. Oftentimes we get that wrong because we end up judging the person instead of judging the sin. And even more so, we judge things that are not even moral things. We judge choices people make. And that's where we get into trouble. So we want to talk about today what to say in these situations where you're just in a dynamic where your freedom of choice is under attack. So Nina, welcome. I'm sure you've had some experience with this topic and maybe have been on both sides of that table, if I could guess.
Hate to admit that to be true, but yeah, of course. Although my mind does go to the space where, I was a victim of judgment. That's the first one. I had a friend, quote friend, tell me one time that, and we decorate our home with antiques and kind of a Northwest cabin theme, because that's where we're from, Montana. And so I've got that kind of feel to my home. And she said to me one time, she goes, speaking the truth in love, you really need a professional decorator. And I thought, wow. Yeah, wow. I said, tell me more about that. And she goes, well, it just looks so, I don't know, masculine and rugged in here. And I said, you know what? I've achieved what I wanted then. Thank you. She's like, really? And I said, yeah, really. We actually really like this. And she gave me an eye roll. And I thought, I don't think I'm inviting you back to my home. Like, what is with you that is coming out of you? Like, for real. And maybe it's not her thing. And, good job. Go do you. But there was no point to that conversation. Like, what is your purpose in telling me those things? How does this impact you in any way, shape, or form? And so essentially it's judgment that's levied for no purpose whatsoever, right? And there's two types of judgment in the Bible. There's the judge not lest ye be judged. But then we're also called to judge so that we can know what to participate in and what not to. Correct. So discernment is different than that negative judgment. Yeah, that thing. And I've judged other people. And in the even when I was right, the way that I came across was just wrong. Like I made decades ago, I made a staff member cry because I was, yeah, I know. Yeah, it's nice. Because I was like, I can't believe you did what you did. And she's like, well, you didn't tell me I couldn't. I said, well, it didn't occur to me that you would even think to do this, and involved thousands of people, a thing that got sent out. And I was like, no, I wasn't I was just like, what were you thinking? Like, what in you thought you, and I look back on that and I go, why were you doing that? Why was that your approach? Like, stop that. What, a question of, okay, so help me understand what was going on, that, it versus because it was already over. So yeah, been on both sides of that fence, not proud of the one side. I try not to do that, but you know what? I think I do it daily.
Yeah,
I do. Most of the time I can keep my mouth shut though now. So that's good. The Holy Spirit's like, hey, can we talk about that thought? What's that about?
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing about this type of judging, the kind that we're not supposed to do, is I think sometimes it's, I don't want to say not intentional, but it's really coming from a place of wanting the best and wanting to love, really, and wanting, maybe even like in your situation, a better way. So it's, the intent is good. It's just the method is horrible. And so I think knowing how to navigate that will help our listeners, because my experience is receiving it and giving it as well. But when I'm on the side of receiving it, usually it's from somebody that has my best interest at heart, someone that loves me, someone I trust as a friend or a family member, or maybe have received counsel from in the past, but just has kind of overstepped their boundaries a little bit. So, okay. So today what we want our listeners to walk away with is the what to say in those situations where, yeah, others do overstep their boundaries and move into judgment without being asked. So, okay, I was watching a movie recently. It's an old movie made some years ago, and it's one of those romantic comedies, boy meets girl. They bump into each other randomly on the street. They fall in love. They plan a wedding, and it's one of those where she's from this side of the tracks, he's from this side of the tracks, and their families are completely different. Well, I know, right?
Yeah.
But they're in love. So, the whole movie's about how that comes together. Well, the bride meets the groom's mother, and all of those things that are different are the things that she's judged on by the mom. And the groom finally gets so sick of it that he just confronts mom, and he's just like, you're only doing this because you don't want this to happen, basically. And of course she gets upset, and there's a big mess, and then the wedding happens and everybody lives happily ever after. But I wonder sometimes in these type of situations, because art does imitate life imitates art, if we judge because that person is just different than us, or they're a threat to us in some way, and we haven't really investigated that thing in our heart that is causing that judgment to come out sideways. What do you think? Is that
I'm in
accurate?
pain over here. The way you said that, just kind of like somebody punched me, like, no kidding. Because I'm being dealt with around.
Oh,
Yeah. The Lord loves me. So it's not super painful, but like, it's a little unpleasant. Right. But there's this thing, and it's the plank thing.
yeah.
So there's a situation where I'm not wrong about something, and I'm expecting, and that's that word, right? I'm expecting things to have gone differently. And then the way I'm reacting to what happened is the same way that the person started this whole. So it's like, we're doing the same thing. But I was going to judge what happened there. So there's this piece that we're doing the same thing within us, and motive may be different. Motive may be different. I'd like to think mine's righteous, but reality is no, just no. It's all about control for me. So there's that. And then there's another piece of this whole thing that popped in my head, which is, the things that are within us that we feel threatened by. You said that. And, so one of the struggles that I have, like, I sometimes I get criticized or judged for a hobby that I have. And nobody knows that I do it like on the cheap. Nobody knows how I work all that out. I'm not spent, but it's I ride horses. That's an expensive hobby, but I don't actually own my own horse. I'm not, spending copious amounts of money on this horse every month. I mean, it is an expense, but it's anyway, I deal with that from other people sometimes. And with depending on the person, I can think of 3 different people that have made comments to me about this. One of them, their motive was something within them where they're not investing in their own personal growth and development and things that they love to do. So they're going to judge me for my doing that because they feel bad that they're not.
Yeah.
Which makes me think of the envy and jealousy thing that we talked about. I think it was Kyle and I talked about that a while back. I'm not sure. And I think you and I have talked about that some too. And it's just, holy heck, that's a thing. And then the other people, there's different reasons there for that judgment of, well, I think you should be doing this. And they're like, you don't need that. They don't see it. They don't understand it for me. And so, if I ever complain about being busy, and I hear, well, you were able to go horseback riding this week. You could have taken that. And I'm like, nobody understands this.
Yeah.
Because I get so much done the day that I do lesson. Like days when I ride horses, my brain is turbocharged. I get more done on those days than any days of the week in less time. And I think it's because with horses, you have to be fully present, right? Yeah. So, and then you have people that project, so maybe somebody said something to them about their hobby that they love doing. And then here's this opportunity where they're going to pass that on to me because they're struggling with their thing inside themselves. And then I get hit with it. And none of it's pleasant.
Right.
And honestly, sometimes it makes it hard to go. And then I go, okay, so your identity's wrapped up in other people's opinions there. What's that about?
Right.
And I just go anyway, and I work it out all the way up there because it takes 40 minutes to drive up there. And I'm always so glad I went, and it's always better. But what do you do with it when it's given to you? You got to take it to the Lord. I do this hobby because I've asked him about it, and he said, yes, go. I wired you this way. This will feed your soul like nothing else. Go. So I found a way to do it that isn't, gluttonous. And even so, I have to put his voice ahead of everyone else's that I hear. And thank God I have people in my life that support it and think I'm a nut job for doing it, but are happy and entertained by it, so there's that too. So I got to listen to that more often than I do. Well, I got to listen to his voice more often than I do anything else. Both sides of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I think you handled it well. And I would even guess that riding the horse is helping you handle that type of judgment well.
Well, given that I'm the least skilled of the group that I ride with, because I can't afford private lessons, I do a group lesson. Horses are a money pit, y'all. But when and I don't care, like I have no ego involvement at all in it, and I'm with people that I love dearly and I know love me and they want to see me succeed. So, but it is humbling because I know I don't have the language, I don't have the technique, and I'm like the early bird learner on the beginner learner in so many spaces, even though what we do is pretty advanced at this point. That it's still it's a humbling place to be. And especially when I struggle with which way is right and which way is left, and I can't remember the patterns, and half that's, it's ridiculous. I'm sure I provide a lot of entertainment, but none of my identity is wrapped up in how I perform there. It's just pure joy.
Yeah.
So that's a thing too, is you've got to, and I think your point is that, doing that helps us handle judgment.
Yep.
It does. When we do the things that we're wired to do, the thing that brings joy like nothing else, then that enables us to go and be in more difficult places.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I want to, hone in on is how important knowing ourselves and knowing God and what God says about who we are is, and showing up in these difficult dynamics, because like you said, these are people that love you, but just kind of made a bad choice in the way they looked at your choice. And so I wanted to also talk about a way to show up and how to handle these situations. Like one of the things you guys are, we at Greater Impact, we teach is when you see someone in a difficult situation and they're struggling, ask if it's okay to ask a question before offering what you think about what their struggle is and offering what, advice you might have for them. And I just find that to be such a lost art. It's just common courtesy, but we don't think to do that. We jump into the place of let me help you, and sometimes that person isn't ready, and I want to highlight that and let our listeners know that that is so important, because the heart has to be ready to receive these type of things, and we don't always know what to say and how to say it, even in an effort to help. Can you talk a little bit about, why that's important and why that step is necessary in
Well,
tough
yeah,
situations?
it that's a huge deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad you brought it up, because and I'm also a little embarrassed to admit this, but it's true. So there's pride just even saying that. Because I wish I was better at it. And I'm pretty good at that. But
Mm-hmm.
even with that, there's so many times in my head I think, oh, I know what you should do. Like, and then the next thought is, really? Because they're not even finished telling you what's going on. Where is that from?
Right.
You know, that's how arrogant I am, is I think I know. And the problem is that in a lot of cases I have, and I haven't been wrong, and it's been useful and helped people. Well, you got to be careful that you don't like let that become part of your identity, that you actually have something to offer in that space. The Lord does, right? The
Mm.
Lord is the one that has the offering. Who do I think I am to think I know anything? Like no, shut up, Nina. And so thankfully, I'm so thankful he made our minds like closed off so that other people can't hear our thoughts. Because
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd have any friends. Because and then I just said all of that aloud. Yeah, I really have that. I really think, oh, I know what you should do. And then and a good chunk of the time, I'll ask a question, and maybe it is and maybe it's not. Yeah, but you have to, and the other piece of it is nobody likes being told what to do,
Right.
ever.
Right.
And so asking, what my granddaughter's in this stage, she's almost 2, right? And so if you ask her a question, the answer is no. It doesn't matter. Even if it's something she wants. Do you want a cookie? No. And then she thinks about that and she's like, oh, cookie?
Wait
Want
a
cookie?
minute.
Yeah, wait a minute. But whatever it is, she's going to say no to. And people have an internal resistance to being told or given unsolicited advice. Um,
Yeah.
and how many times do we do that in marriage, when our spouse is getting fat, or whatever, is like, are you, what's going on, here that, I think I need to tell them, control them, limit, like what? No. And
Right.
I hear some really, really sketchy stuff talking to people every day,
Mm.
all
Mm.
during the week, right? All day, every day. So there's people that will actually be controlling about what they buy at the grocery store, trying to manipulate and control their spouse, versus saying, hey, can we have a conversation around health? What's going on with you? I've noticed you've put on 50 pounds in the last 6 months. Are you okay? Versus, okay, you're getting fat and we're going on a diet. I, like, in what universe does that strategy ever work? It doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And half the time, I think it's more about us when we respond that way.
Yeah.
There's something going on with us where we feel like that person's choice is our business and our choice as well, essentially. And it's tough because, yeah, it might be something that needs to be addressed, but likely won't, like you said, because of the freedom we want to choose for ourselves.
Mhm.
So Okay, I guess a question I have is how, like, what to say? What is the right thing to say in that dynamic, especially in marriage, where it can feel like that person's choice that you're married to, who you're in the same house with, who you're sharing funds with, you're sharing children with, your
Mhm.
lives are kind of intertwined,
Yeah.
and you really need some space, you need some freedom. So if you're that wife or husband and you're being told you're fat, what's going on? You're going on a diet. What's a nice way to respond to something like that?
Well, yeah, right. Um, ah, well, first breathe, breathe,
Yeah.
breathe, breathe, um, remember God loves you. That's all warm and fuzzy and definitely true. Um, in the middle of a moment when you're interacting with that, there's a couple of things. You have to weigh the motive of the other person, right? In spite of the delivery. So, but then on top of that, you also have the delivery, and it needs to be dealt with too. So you really have two pieces of this. So you have the
Mm-hmm.
information that's presented. And so what you want to do is you want to take the way that it was delivered and set that aside for a minute and go, okay, is there any truth to this? Like, okay, maybe I am getting fat, you know, like, can I just look at what information was presented to me and remove the way it was presented, remove the presenter, and just
Yeah.
look at what was handed to me and go, is this true or not true? Or how true is that? Lord, what do you have to say about this? So so you look at the information first. And then the second thing is okay, does the behavior of that person fit in the relationship? And is there a way that they could have shown up better? And then on top of that, were they in my yard uninvited?
Ooh.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but there's times when we ask to come into somebody else's yard because their bonfire is polluting. The smoke is coming over into our yard
Yep.
and it's polluting and killing our trees or whatever is going on, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so something needs to be addressed there because it's affecting us. And so
Mm-hmm.
then, so okay, so maybe that's happening. And so then you go to the person and you say, okay, so I understand that you're concerned about my weight and my health, and I appreciate that. Can we have a do-over and have you approach this with me in a way that's actually respectful, and comes across as loving and kind, gentle, respectful, something there? Because the way that that was handled makes me want to not have anything to do with you or the message that you sent.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm actually that direct,
Yeah.
because people need to know. So that's a piece of that.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. I think that being gracious and how to handle that is just so key in making this whole thing go well. Because like we've said, this whole conversation, it's usually from a place of love, usually from a place of concern. But sometimes it can startle us to a place where we don't add anything good to the conversation. So
Well, and even if it's not, let's say the person was dealing with their own thing and their retort to you was mean and cruel and out of line and just whatever, it still needs to be looked at.
mhm.
It still needs to be addressed. And so you look at the information that was presented, is that true? And then, okay, you look at the person and the way it was presented, is there anything there that needs to be looked at?
Mhm.
And if so, then yes, because if you ignore it, you're condoning it. So
Mhm.
those things have to be interacted with. Otherwise, you're going to get more of it. And then, who do you have to blame for that? Well, me, right? For saying nothing. So,
Yeah. Another thing we do that may not be really judging, but sometimes we make it about ourselves in these conversations where um, someone is struggling with something, and then we jump in and we talk about our own stuff, And that's
Mhm.
also like unsolicited
Mhm.
advice. And I'm guilty of doing that. And I didn't realize how harmful that can be because, sometimes that person is looking for advice. And by making it about us,
Mhm.
it almost, discourages that person even more. And so I'm not sure how to respond. What to say when that happens? If, you're in that conversation, you're sharing your heart, and then that person just says, "Oh, yeah, I went through this, and here's what happened to me." And is there a what to say there where you can, reel that person back in to say, "Hey, this isn't about you."
Well, so it depends on the relationship, right?
Yeah,
So if this is one of your people that are, if you're at a cocktail party, you probably shouldn't be sharing that stuff with the random stranger anyway. And that's what they're going to do because that's what people do at cocktail parties or, Christmas parties, holiday parties, whatever, bonfires, barbecues. They share stories about each other and people tell entertaining stories and they make, oh,
right,
it reminds me. That's what people do at
right,
those things. So,
right.
but I'm assuming that's not what you're talking about. But
No, no, no,
yeah,
no.
but
Mm,
that is the only time, by the
right.
way, that it's okay to share what happened to you. And you gotta acknowledge what the other person just said. Wow, that sounds terrible. You broke your leg on your ski trip and spent most of it in the lodge. That is lousy.
Right.
How'd your family respond to that? What was that like for you? And then you can tell, are you, hey, I've got this same story. You want to hear it? And then you share your story, but you acknowledge the other person. When you are in an intimate relationship with somebody, or deep friendship or whatever, 80% of the time, most people are not going to do this. But let's say that they mess up, right? But it's a constant thing. Like anytime you bring up something with you, they're like, well, let me tell you about my broken arm, or let me tell you about my messy marriage, like, okay, so now we're just complaining at each other. Like, what? Yeah, no. So if it's somebody that matters to you and you want a deep relationship with them, um, I listen to their story. I show lots of empathy. And then I stop talking for a moment. I put a pause in and then I say something like, I'm wondering, do you feel like I heard and understood what you were saying? Well, yeah. Okay. I just want you to know that was kind of what I was looking for from you. I needed some love in this space because I'm hurting and I feel like you just kind of went off on your own thing. And I was looking for being heard and understood, and I don't think that happened. So I love you and I want that from you because we're close. And the last several times we've been together, it's been about you. And I
Yeah.
don't know if you're aware of that or not. But I'm not getting my needs met in the relationship. And so I need to let you know that. And so then that gives people the opportunity to go, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. You're right. Because people don't understand reciprocal relationship.
That's right.
Reciprocity makes friendship happen.
That's right.
It's really important.
Yeah, this is good. I feel like these are things that are basic, just common courtesy, decency things that we just have forgotten. And I don't know if it's, culturally, just social media, just the way we communicate now has changed so much that we've just
Mhm.
forgotten how to do this stuff.
Yeah. When you think about social media, TikTok, you scroll from one person's story to the next and the next and the next. You get in a live person, they tell you your story, and it's like, well, let me tell you mine, and somebody else, it's like, wait, what? There's nothing deep happening anywhere.
Right.
Well, it can if we make it. It can if we're honest. We
Mhm.
keep short accounts, if we lead with truth and know what we want in our relationships and go after it, ask
Mhm.
for it.
Ask for it.
Yeah.
All right. So lots of tips today on what to say if you are in a situation where you are being judged for your choice, or if you're being given advice you didn't ask for. There's several things you can do depending on the relationship, if it's a close one or if it's just an acquaintance. You have several options. Things like just breathing and taking it to the Lord first are very important. You got to think about what the motive of that person might have been. Take some time and really think through that. And if it's true, if something is being said that's true and helpful, then, maybe consider that. If not, try to find the truth, filter through the yucky stuff, and get to the truth if you can. If it's someone that's close to you and you can be a little more direct, maybe ask them to repeat what they said with kindness or respect. And if, they're still not listening and they're going on and on about themselves, maybe just give them what you need and listen for a bit, give them some empathy in that moment, and then come back around and ask for what you need directly. And then maybe they'll be in a position to now help. So we want you to do something with this today. Greater Impact is all about forward movement. So we hope that you take what you've heard and apply it to your life. We invite you to check out our website, greaterimpact.org, where you can download a free PDF, 5 tools with how to stop walking on eggshells. And if you want more information, you also have other episodes on this channel that you can check out that are along the same lines, similar topics. Thanks for joining today, and we hope to see you next time.